Jaguar Land Rover-owner Tata is set to announce plans to build a big new electric car battery plant in Somerset. There's been political reaction to this news already. Let's speak to our economics and data editor who's in our Westminster studio for us. Ed, what are you hearing?
Yeah, this has been one of the longer awaited announcements in quite some time. This essentially is the long-awaited announcement that Tata, which is the owner of Jaguar Land Rover, are expected to be building their gigafactory. What's a gigafactory? It's a big battery factory, basically, to provide the batteries that go inside electric cars. So it's an enormous part of the future plans for all car makers to be building that in the UK. So there was a big question, a lot of suspense as to whether they were going to decide to build it in Spain or in the UK. Those were the two countries which were in the offing. But in the end, it sounds like it is going to be the UK in a place called the Gravity Centre, which is in Somerset, just off, I think, the M5. And it is big news for the UK. Big news because obviously there is still a very big car industry in this country, but there aren't very many battery factories. And in much the same way as the engine is a really important, the most important, the highest value bit of a conventional car that we have today, a petrol car, the batteries are the highest value, highest skill bits of a future electric car. So basically, if you're going to be making lots of electric cars, and that seems to be the future, you need to be making lots of batteries. And this is JLR's, Jaguar Land Rover's, plan for doing it. We're going to hear more about it from the Prime Minister and others tomorrow. That's the expectation about this plan, there's all sorts of question marks about it, about precisely how big the capacity is going to be, about precisely which company is going to be making those batteries, because that's also a critical thing. It's unlikely to be Tata themselves. But all the same, we're talking potentially about thousands of jobs here. And this goes beyond just a simple battery factory. As I say, in order to make the cars, you really ideally need to be making the batteries close to where those cars are being assembled. So this was existential for the future of Jaguar Land Rover and their investments in the UK. So it has been something, the people I've spoken to in government have been incredibly nervous about this over the course of the last few months. There was speculation it was going to come back in May, and a lot of people were nervous at the time that it would actually be announced. It wasn't announced back then. Now it does look like it is actually being firmed up and is going to be announced tomorrow. You're talking about thousands of jobs, potentially as many as 9,000 jobs. We've just had a reaction from Jonathan Reynolds, who's Labour's shadow business secretary, who said that Labour welcomes any investment in British jobs, and decisions like these vindicate Labour's advocacy of an industrial strategy in place of scattergun announcements. But of course, for Rishi Sunak, for the Conservative Party, they will be incredibly relieved that they can get this, that they've managed to get this through. The negotiations have been going on for quite some time. People involved in those negotiations say that Tata has been playing hardball. It's been tough stuff. At the same time, they're trying to negotiate what's happening with their steelworks in Port Talbot. No clarity on whether we're going to get an announcement on that. But the fact that there is a further gigafactory, a battery factory, a big, large-scale battery factory that's going to be built in the UK is a very big deal indeed for the car industry, because without those things, you are unlikely in future to have an electric car industry. The only question now is some of the details and indeed whether there are going to be other battery announcements in the future. Finally, I should say, one other enormous question is precisely how much money the government has committed to Tata to encourage them to build this battery factory in the UK. The speculation was potentially about £500 million, but we'll hopefully get more details on that in the coming hours.